Nodwch ein bod yn trafod pynciau a allai fod yn sensitif yn y bennod hon. Cyfeiriwch at y nodiadau am fwy o wybodaeth a dolenni at ganllawiau a chefnogaeth. Please be aware that we discuss potentially sensitive subjects in this episode. Refer to the show notes for more information and for links to guidance and support. Helo a chroeso I Sgwrsio gyda EWC, y podlediad gan gyngor y gweithlu addysg. Hello and welcome to Sgwrsio with the EWC, the podcast from the Education Workforce Council.
Croeso cynnes I chi gyd. Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Hayden Llewellyn and I'm the Chief Executive of the EWC, the Education Workforce Council in Wales. It's my pleasure to introduce this podcast to you. It follows on from an event that the EWC ran fairly recently. It was one of our masterclasses and dealt with the subject called We Don't Tell the Teachers, Understanding and Addressing Sexual Harassment in Education Settings. The event itself was really well attended, just shy of 200 practitioners and stakeholders. So much so that we ran out of time when we got to the Q&A. We managed, I think, about 4 questions, but there were many, many more. So I'm pleased today to bring back some of the speakers from the masterclass to deal with the questions that we had on the day. So I'd like the speakers to introduce themselves, please.
Hi, my name is Kelly Harris and I'm the Business Development Manager for Wales for an organisation called Brooke, who are the UK's leading sexual health, wellbeing and relationships charity, where we provide specialist education for children, young people and professionals on a range of subjects from sexual health, puberty periods to harmful sexual behaviour, peer-on-peer sexual harassment and other topics.
Hi all, my name is Sharron Wareham. I'm a Children's Services Manager for Barnardo's Cymru. My professional background is in social work, although I've spent the last 19 years now working directly with children and families impacted by child sexual abuse across all of its domains. The service that I manage is called Better Futures, and we have a particular focus supporting children and families impacted by child sexual exploitation, including peer abuse and exploitation, as well as harmful sexual behaviour, again including harmful sexual behaviour displayed by children and young people.
Hello, I'm Elinor Puzey, and I'm a Senior Policy and Public Affairs Officer in the Public Affairs team for NSPCC Cymru.
So the first question that we had that we didn't get to on the day was from Sophie. Sophie asked, what percentage of peer-on-peer assaults involve inappropriate touching, groping or similar?
That's a really good question, Sophie. And I think like all forms of child sexual abuse, it's really difficult to be specific around the amount or prevalence of child sexual abuse involving peers, particularly in a contact nature. By its very nature, it's hidden, it's secret, and there's many, many barriers for children to come forward and tell us when it's happening. From a service perspective, I can tell you that we are seeing an increase in our referrals around peer abuse and exploitation, with many of those including contact behaviours. So pre-pandemic, we would have been seeing around about 30% of our referrals involving peer abuse and exploitation. Post-pandemic, we've seen an increase to around about 50% of our referrals involving contact behaviours, many within school settings where there's peer abuse and exploitation.
I think it's a really important area around knowing and understanding, as Sharron said, there isn't as much research around it to be really accurate in making a claim about like what the percentages are. What we know from the ystod report and what we don't tell our teachers is that in their research, 61% of females who were part of the research said that they had experience of peer-on-peer sexual harassment compared to 29% of males. However, what we know in terms of them seeing this behaviour happen to them was that 82% of females had said that they had witnessed or seen sexual harassment happen to others, in comparison to 71% of males saying it. So it's really hard, but I agree with Sharron. For us as an organisation at Brooke, we are getting more requests from schools to come in and provide education for their pupils and also to provide more professional training on this area.
Absolutely. The Estyn findings and the importance of education in school, both for children who are harmed in this context, but also for the children who are displaying the harmful behaviour. So really important that, schools are supported to be able to respond to the needs and safeguarding needs of both groups of learners wherever this behaviour happens.
Thanks, everybody, for your inputs on that first question. So I'm going to move to the second question asked on the day, and this is from Paula. Has much been done on how sexual harassment could be addressed in RVE, so religion, values and ethics?
So what we've seen at Brook is there's a real opportunity in terms of wider education in relation to the Relationship Sexuality Education Code, is that Welsh Government are really pushing for this education to happen across all areas of learning and experience. And I think it really presents itself an opportunity for RVE to really take on the issues around kindness, tolerance, acceptance, the way we treat others, and all of those different societal elements, and feed that into the wider teachings. Hub will be a fantastic resource where teachers across Wales can be sharing the good practice that they're doing in their schools, and also sharing the resources around this is how we've done it on this topic around tolerance, or this is how we've identified and addressing misogyny. There's lots of areas. I would definitely encourage professionals to share via Hub with each other so that people can utilise it.
Just to say that in terms of resources, it might be worth having a look at NSPCC Learning, because there are some sort of bits and pieces available there for primary and secondary school. The thing that comes to mind is Speak Out, Stay Safe. But yeah, if you go ahead and Google NSPCC Learning, there might be some useful resources there as well for you, as well as Hub, absolutely.
The next question we have, which was anonymous, do you have any advice for how teachers can positively engage with parents and guardians who may have concerns about the approach to relationships and sexuality education, including what's being taught under the new curriculum?
Yeah, I think, it's something that we're routinely asked by schools who are very keen actually to get this right and to take whole school approaches to this topic. And I think my advice would be open and honest. Encourage parents to work with you, invite parents to attend school meetings, share their views, any concerns or anxieties that they may have around the curriculum or around, kind of the lesson planning for individual schools. Try to work in a way that understands what the parental barriers or anxieties might be rather than closing those down. And what we find is, kind of usually where we have that open and honest discussion, we're on the same page as parents. Actually, parents also are in agreement that there's lots of valuable teaching and learning around this subject area. The other thing I think is about understanding what schools can do and then what parents can do outside of school to supplement and kind of reinforce learning around those topics. For us, we know talking to children, what they tell us is school is the place where they would prefer to learn about this topic. But what they want is confident teachers who can deliver the teaching and the learning in a way that is skilled and knowledgeable of the subject matter. So I think open, honesty, skilled teaching staff is the way forward.
Yeah, I think that is really excellent advice and something that we would very much echo here at Brook as well. And I think it's really important, as said, is about really understanding what the concerns are from parents and carers, because a lot of time the concern that they might have might not actually be kind of founded within what is due to be taught during the curriculum. There's a lot of hearsay and misinformation around regarding the new Relationship Sexuality Education Code. And so I think it's important that schools show that document to parents and carers as well, to show how it's being taught at phase 1 for learners aged 3 to 6, phase 2 for learners aged 7 to 11, and then phase 3, 11 to 16-year-olds. So I think it's important that people actually understand what is being taught and when and what we mean by developmentally appropriate, so that therefore the education is tailored to the needs of those learners. I also think it's really important that schools are as open and transparent as possible. So the brilliant examples that we just heard, parents' evenings, coffee times, morning sessions, one-on-ones with the head teacher, however that might be, are really, really pertinent. But fundamentally, where there cannot be resolution with parents and carers about the education, it's about being really clear that teachers are under instruction to deliver this education. And if parents and carers aren't happy, that they therefore should follow the school's kind of complaints procedure. Because what we hear sometimes is that teachers are being challenged, sometimes aggressively, and it's not fair on that individual to be the one to take the brunt of the dissatisfaction. So following the school's procedures and kind of raising it up to the governors if needed. But yeah, open transparency and really fundamentally rooting it in the need for that child or young person, and that they are asking for this education, which we know they really are.
Going back to what Sharron was saying about that training, so that teachers do feel really confident in delivering the new curriculum and confident in putting those points across. We ran a young person-led session in the autumn of last year, and this came up in terms of young people saying they just couldn't stress how important it is that we talk about these issues. So I think it's going back to that as well. This is, young people, children want these lessons, and so how can we do that in a way that works for them, but also ensures that parents and carers are comfortable as well?
Absolutely, Ellie. For me as well, it's acknowledging kind of groups of children who might be excluded or, kind of unintentionally not included in some of these lessons. And that's children in special schools, particularly, where certainly for our service, they've been a group who are overrepresented in, referral for support. And some of that is about them not having access or the same equal access to relationships and sexuality education. And then not always then having an understanding of what healthy behaviour looks like, getting to an age and stage where they're naturally curious and interested in bodies, touch, relationships, but without an accurate understanding of what's healthy and appropriate. And I think, again, working with that group of parents, particularly the learners who might have physical care needs, in, kind of really working with those parents and education staff to understand the messaging that those learners might need and how that differs from maybe mainstream teaching, but equally such an important group for us to get this right for.
Thank you all. I have another question, which is anonymous again. It's quite a long question, so just bear with me on this one. In one case I'm aware of, a child who was assaulted also had become aware that the person who'd done the assaulting had also assaulted other young people as well. The feeling was that staff didn't respond effectively to prevent the person reoffending. When this was raised by parents and others, staff said that they couldn't share information relating to other children. So the question for you all is, how can parents and others who are concerned deal with a matter of this nature regarding a particular child?
It's a really tricky subject. The first thing that I'll start off saying really is that there is really clear statutory guidance in Wales that sets out responses, for children who have harmed others sexually, as well as those who have been harmed sexually within education or other settings. And it's real clear guidance around promoting the safety and the well-being of all children involved in the reported concerns. There's also non-statutory guidance that applies to education establishments across Wales that also sets out really clear expectations of schools in keeping learners safe, where there's incidents of harmful sexual behaviour, including peer abuse and exploitation. Within those documents, there are template safety plans included within education guidance. They support schools in promoting the rights of all children and ensuring the safety and well-being of all learners is promoted. So I think, kind of from our perspective, it's about acknowledging the needs of both children, all children who've been involved with the incident, but also ensuring that where there is risk posed to learners, that we consider safety planning around risk of what, to who, where, when and why, and how that can be most appropriately managed in school. Thinking about situations within the school that might pose higher risk to others, making sure that all families are aware of the steps the school is taking and the safety planning that's going to be put in place. Checking progress with the learners, the families at agreed intervals is also going to be important. And an agreement that is understood by all about how further incidents, if they occur, can be responded to. And for both or all children to have designated staff within school for them to be able to go to should problems or difficulties arrive. And I think then finally monitoring and reviewing of a safety plan should be put in place depending on progress made. Ultimately, the safety of all children in school is paramount. So to come back to that kind of data sharing bit of the question then, there is clear statutory guidance around approaches. If learners are felt to be at risk, then the safety of the learners is paramount, and information sharing can and should take place.
Yeah, I think that's really, really excellent advice and an overview from Sharron. There isn't much more I'd personally add into it, except to say that if there was a situation where parents or carers or even young people really felt that something wasn't being addressed or dealt with properly or in line with legislation, as Sharron's just outlined, is that they could contact the Children's Commissioner for Wales, the investigation and advice line, which is there as an opportunity for people to seek advice and support from if they feel they're being treated unfairly or there's a situation where they don't feel safe or that something is affecting their rights as young people. To say that's obviously in the kind of the next case scenario, but I would just want to highlight that service to people as well.
And just to add to that as well, and going back to the young persons event that we ran last year, there's something about working collaboratively when developing sort of policies within schools as well. So working with young people about what would work for them and having those sort of frequent and collaborative reviews to ensure that that policies and that sort of thing remain relevant to the young people, and then that hopefully then feeds in what would actually work in terms of challenging some of these issues.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next question. This again is anonymous. We know that bullying and sexual harassment is happening online, including via mobile phones. This means that children who are being bullied may not be safe in their own homes. Do you have any strategies for dealing with this? These could be for children and young people, for parents and guardians, or even for schools.
Yeah, online harms are dynamic and ever-changing. And I think it's really important that children, their carers and schools feel they're able to access information about those online risks and know how they can support children and young people. I think, again, speaking to our young persons event, one of the things that they spoke to was about how important regular awareness campaigns are and making sure that parents and local communities are aware of ways that they can provide support. And in terms of some of the practical things that you can sort of share now with schools and parents and communities, Childline has Report Remove, which is available bilingually, and it's support for young people on removing nude images, for example, and they can do that confidentially as well. But there are also videos available through Childline that professionals can share with children to sort of explain the process. And there's advice as well from NSPCC in terms of keeping children safe online, and there's resources there for children, professionals and parents. Also free online workshops that can be accessed again via NSPCC Learning. And some of the sort of top line advice from Childline around online safety is about reporting and blocking people, keeping evidence of bullying, telling someone at school or someone you trust, and where possible taking a break from checking messages. But yeah, I would say looking at some of those resources in more detail and hopefully that will help.
For parents, it's about being aware that child sexual development will happen in online spaces, not just offline spaces, and what our children see and hear in those spaces really does matter. In terms of, the development of sexual attitudes, beliefs around self and others. I would say that, kind of speaking from a parental perspective as well as a professional perspective, it's about being interested in your child's online space, online world. It's about being interested in what they like, what they're doing, who their friends are in those spaces, and again, from quite young ages. And this needs to start at an early age for children and maybe continue in school right across the child's ages and stages of sexual development, rather than just being a school kind of specific issue, but rules around respectful relationships, kind of, what's okay, what's not okay, what's healthy, not healthy from the home, and then that being carried on in those whole school approaches, and responding to small concerns, I think, as well, if, teachers become aware of those small concerns. And the other thing that Estyn, really shone a spotlight on was the prevalence of sexual harassment and bullying the students told us was happening out of school, but online and then being taken into school. So this really is everybody's business, this question, isn't it? For us to think about what we're doing as parents at home, but then also how schools can reinforce and help children to find more respectful and healthy ways to express self.
Another thing that the Estyn report really highlighted was not only that are they experiencing these things offline, and as Sharron said, they are coming into school life, but a lot of the time is that our children and young people aren't reporting them to their teachers, these trusted adults, because they don't feel that the issue is being taken seriously enough, or they're concerned or worried about what's going to happen with that information when they come forward with it. So I think a really practical things that schools can do is reflect on what their policy is around disclosures of this nature, or how they have a whole school approach to these issues, so that actually when a child or a young person comes forward and said that they're experiencing something, not only are they being taken seriously and being listened to, it's being clearly explained to them what's going to happen next, because sometimes we can forget that. And I think fundamentally that's really important for that reassuring of that child or young person of how I'm going to take forward the thing that you've told me about. This is what will happen. This is how we'll feed back to you. This is how you'll be involved in the process. So I think a real practical thing for schools to do is to really look at your policies around this. And if you haven't got any guidance, or you haven't got a specific part of your policy looking at this, create it, work on it, share good practice, learn from other schools, but we can't just ignore it. We need to be ensuring that actually our schools are safe environments for our learners.
The next question was from Tim. Tim is interested in situations where teachers may feel uncomfortable delivering RSE sessions. And what Tim was thinking was that could such teachers or other professionals talk to others, maybe nurses, youth workers, or maybe observe their delivery as a learning process, so that a teacher could therefore deliver a similar session effectively in the future and gain confidence.
At Brook, we do a huge amount of professional training, and one of the biggest areas that comes up is the confidence of professionals to talk about topics relating to sexual health, well-being, sexual harassment, etc. Is that staff don't feel that they've had the professional training themselves to be able to deliver it. They don't know where to start. They don't know how to do it safely. They don't know how to protect the learners from questions, or how to even prepare themselves to answer questions. There's a real confidence issue with professionals delivering it, which you can really understand. And Welsh Government have committed to improving the professional training available for them, and I would encourage schools to check in with education consortia to see if they are running any training on these topics to help professional learning. However, I think learning from others is a really good thing. So school nurses definitely definitely, if they're running a contraception session or a session on puberty, how can that teacher be learning from them? How can they be picking up skills, or how could they be sharing resources with each other? But also looking at what other schools are doing. I often say to teachers, you are each other's biggest allies when it comes to delivering this work. So, working with communities, working with each other to know what works, sharing resources. And again, I would encourage people to look at Hub and what resources have been shared and are available on that. But definitely linking in with your community groups and your youth service would be a fantastic opportunity. We know that some schools across Wales, not all, but some have adopted kind of school-based youth workers who are able to be on hand to help with delivery or to help support or provide training on these topic areas as well. And also just finally utilising organisations like myself, Sharron and Ellie, the organisations we represent, we're all able to support schools in different ways. So it's just knowing what's available. And I would just like the opportunity to just flag that, Brooke have an e-learning suite of free digital learning resources that professionals could also use to help upskill themselves on various topics relating to relationship, sexuality, education as well.
I would just add, Kelly sort of covered that really comprehensively, but just to echo really that, that there are plenty of resources out there. And I think it goes back to some of the points that we've already spoken to in terms of ensuring that teachers and schools in general get the support to confidently deliver the new curriculum, and making sure that there's sort of time ring-fenced for them to get that sort of training. And I think there's something about how support is made available for the local community as well. So the community that sort of sits around the school to help them spot the signs of sexual harassment, developing training that's informed by contextual safeguarding approaches. So ensuring that, local businesses and shops and cafes and coach drivers and park wardens and all that sort of thing recognise their role in supporting and safeguarding young people as well.
If I could just add, both primary and secondary prevention to this issue, is key in reducing harm and harming by children. I think, unfortunately, the requests for us to do school-based work, they tend to come in as a reactive strategy after an incident. So I think we just have to get better at getting comfortable with the uncomfortable topic of child sexual abuse across all of our systems, including the education system, where we're using prevention strategies to reinforce that sexual abuse by children isn't inevitable. It is definitely preventable. But one thing that sexual abuse does thrive in is silence, and and when it's hidden in nature. So I think kind of more talking and more awareness raising across all of our systems, kind of public awareness, but also including children in that awareness through school-based programs would be a huge stride to tackling this. Kind of that said, kind of Tim's question is talking about feeling uncomfortable about some of the topics that we've spoken about today, and delivering that in an RSE context. And I think that we have to be live to our teachers are well placed to deliver this, but we have to support our teachers well to do that. And as Kelly said, if that means that agencies, community agencies are linking in with schools to help them to train the trainer sessions, or to pop along and do a session that they can observe and then rerun when they're more confident to do so, that for me is the way forward. I think despite the very uncomfortable topic that we're here to talk about today, it is only by talking about it that I think we will make a dent and get a reduction in it occurring.
Thanks, everybody. The next question is from Darius. Have you ever been confronted by educators, parents or policymakers about the RSE curriculum? And if so, what have been their counter-arguments?
Yes is my answer. So at Brooke, we definitely have faced some kind of anti-RSE messaging over the years, but significantly over the last kind of 2 years, I would say, and intensified over the last 12 months. And I think the rationale or the reason that people have, I think is deeply rooted in just misunderstanding of what the Relationship Sexuality Education Code actually is and what it's going to be teaching. I feel that there's a real misunderstanding that people think we are going to be teaching around, say, sexual activities at a very young age. So because people see that the RSE code is for 3 to 16-year-olds, they therefore think that means we're teaching kind of 3, 4, 5, 6-year-olds about sexual activity, which is very, very incorrect. That's where a lot of the confusion or worry or concern comes from. So again, that real importance of talking to people, showing people, having really thoughtful, productive conversations about actually, no, this is the reality of what we're teaching, because there will be some people who are very much against the teachings of RSE. And with Wales's move to prevent parents and carers from removing their child or young person from this education, it therefore makes people feel even more anxious at times. So again, clarity, vitally, vitally important. And also how I always approach conversations is that we come from a standpoint of safeguarding. We come at RSE in the best interest of the child or the young person to give them factually correct information to help keep themselves safe. So whilst I might work with a 15-year-old, and yes, the conversation could be about contraception and sexually transmitted infections, it's also about acknowledging that not all young people are sexually active. So whilst this information might not be pertinent to them right now in their lives, this information might be relevant to them at some point. So it's about giving them that information so that, as Sharron mentioned in a previous answer, we're not just being reactionary, we're being proactive and preventative in our approach to these topics. So it's always from a sense of safeguarding, talking about consent, vitally important, that it's not just about sexual consent, it's wider consent. I often use the example of, young people being in photographs with other young people and then being posted online, having an awareness of what you are consenting to. So it's not just always about sexual information. It's actually sometimes about kindness, tolerance, understanding, healthy relationships, displaying that healthy behaviour as well. So safeguarding is really the root of everything that we do. And I think once you have that conversation with people who misunderstand, actually you're able to make progress and realise that you are all on the same page with it. We're all wanting to make sure that children and young people are safe.
Okay, thank you. And the final question is from Hayley. We've already talked a bit in this podcast, quite a lot actually, about staff training. The difference in terms of Hayley's question is Hayley's a manager in an FE college. So can anyone give Hayley some specific advice, bearing in mind the context she works in, about training her staff in this subject?
When we were asked by Welsh Government to produce a training video, which sits online on Welsh Government website, but also our website. And if listeners want that, then I'm very happy to share that with you guys to be shared freely. But I think, that training talks about harmful sexual behaviour, for children up to the age of 18. So, kind of 16 to 18-year-olds then in further education. And it talks about proportionate responses, bearing in mind that, children within this age group are able to and can consent to sexual behaviour. But it also talks about power imbalances within relationships and not just making decisions about what's healthy and unhealthy based on relationships, but also thinking about, as Kelly has said in other answers, the importance of consent, within stages of relationships prior to intimacy, regardless of age. I think kind of for my organisation, be very happy to share that training video. It's funded by Welsh Government, but produced by Barnardo's. So happy for that to be shared widely for education staff to have an understanding of what we mean when we're talking about, kind of normative expected sexual behaviour in children across the ages and stages, right up to what we mean by abusive and violent behaviour by children and young people, and then what proportionate responses might look like.
I think we've also mentioned earlier just about a good starting point could be a free resource is our Brookie Learning modules for professionals. Unfortunately, there is only one that is available bilingually, which is our brand new one that we did in partnership with the Open University and Cardiff University on how to teach RSE. They're a good starting point, a good introduction, and they can take anything between half hour to an hour, depending on the learner and how quickly they like to kind of read or participate in the different activities. But they are a good way in for it. And obviously Brooke are able to support colleges and FE provisions with training for staff. But unfortunately, as a charity, we don't get core funding. So, we do have to charge for these things. But I think, as Sharron said, it's really important noting that the ages of FE learners, in that is possibly when they're going to start becoming more sexually active. So it's really important that further education provisions have really good policies or access to things like condom distribution schemes, which I know some colleges do have around Wales. So again, really important clear messaging for learners on how they can access it. But for the professional learning, that would just be another recommendation that I would offer as our e-learning.
I'd like to thank Ellie, Sharron and Kelly again. The masterclass that we ran on this topic, you can watch that back again via our website. Many thanks.
Diolch am wrando ar y benod hon o Sgwrsio gyda ECEGA. Gallwch wrando ar yr holl benodau ar ein gwefan www.ecega.cymru neu ble bynnag rydych chi'n gwrando ar bodlediadau. Cofiwch dan ysgrifio i beidio a cholli penod a rhannwch gyda'ch cydweithwyr. Thank you for listening to this episode of Sgwrsio with the EWC. You can listen to all episodes on our website www.ewc.wales or on your podcast provider of choice. Remember to subscribe so that you don't miss an episode and share it with your colleagues.